The morning sun cast long shadows across the ancient stones of Windsor Castle as Prince Harry adjusted his military dress uniform one final time. His fingers trembled slightly as he straightened his medals, each one representing years of service, duty, and tradition that would soon become memories rather than daily reality. Through the tall windows of his private chambers, he could see the grounds where he had played as a child, learned to ride horses, and later brought Meghan to meet his grandmother for the first time. Meghan stood before an ornate mirror in the adjoining room, carefully arranging her elegant hat. The deep navy dress she wore was perfectly pressed, chosen specifically for this moment that would mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Her hands moved with practiced precision, but her eyes revealed the weight of what they were about to do. This wasn't just any ordinary departure from the castle. This was goodbye to a life they had known, to responsibilities they had carried, and to a future they had once imagined. The castle staff moved quietly through the corridors, their usual morning routines carrying an unusual heaviness. Everyone knew this day was different. Maids who had served the royal family for decades exchanged meaningful glances as they prepared the rooms. Footmen polished silver with extra care, as if preserving every detail of normalcy before everything changed. The head butler, a man who had served 3 generations of royals, found himself pausing longer than usual as he arranged the morning newspapers on the breakfast table. Outside, the grounds of Windsor Castle buzzed with controlled activity. Security personnel conducted their final sweeps of the route, speaking in hushed tones into their radios. Gardeners tended to the roses that bloomed along the pathways, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the somber mood that seemed to hang in the air. The ancient walls of the castle had witnessed countless departures over the centuries, but few carried the emotional weight of this particular morning. Harry walked through the familiar hallways one last time, his footsteps echoing against the stone floors. Each room held memories that flooded back with unexpected intensity. The library where he had spent countless hours reading military history, the dining room where family gatherings had taken place, the sitting room where he and Meghan had shared quiet moments away from the public eye. These spaces had been his home, his sanctuary, and now they felt like a museum of his past life. The couple's personal belongings had been carefully packed and sent ahead days earlier. What remained were only the essentials for their final hours as working members of the royal family. Their staff had worked tirelessly to ensure every detail was perfect, understanding that this departure needed to be handled with the utmost dignity and grace. The weight of tradition demanded nothing less, even in moments of such personal significance. As the morning progressed, Harry and Meghan found themselves in the private sitting room, where they had made the decision that led to this day. The conversation had taken place months earlier, filled with difficult choices and painful realizations about their future within the royal family. They had weighed their desire for privacy and independence against their sense of duty and service. The decision hadn't come easily, but once made, there was no turning back. The phone calls to family members had been among the most difficult conversations of their lives. Harry's voice had cracked slightly when he spoke with his grandmother, the Queen, explaining their reasoning and expressing their deep respect for her and the institution she represented. Meghan had struggled to find the right words to convey their gratitude for the opportunities they'd been given while also expressing their need to forge their own path. Now, as they prepared for their final public appearance as working royals at this venue, both understood the historic nature of what was unfolding. This wasn't just a personal decision affecting their small family. It represented a shift in the modern monarchy, a reflection of changing times and evolving expectations. They were stepping away from centuries of tradition to create something new, something uncertain, but something that felt authentic to who they had become. The classic open-top car that would carry them away had been chosen with careful consideration. It represented elegance and tradition while also symbolizing openness and transparency. The vehicle had been meticulously prepared by the royal garage, every surface polished to perfection. The soft leather seats had been conditioned, and the engine tuned to ensure a smooth departure. Even the route had been planned with precision, taking them past significant landmarks that held meaning for both Harry and the institution he was leaving behind. Their security detail had been briefed extensively about the departure procedures. While Harry and Meghan were stepping back from official duties, their protection remained paramount. The careful balance between allowing public access to witness this historic moment while maintaining their safety required intricate planning and coordination among multiple agencies. Every contingency had been considered and planned for. The media presence outside the castle gates had been building since dawn. Photographers positioned themselves at strategic locations, knowing that the images captured today would be studied and remembered for generations. News crews from around the world had gathered, understanding that they were documenting a moment that would be analyzed and discussed for years to come. The global interest in this departure reflected the couple's international profile and the widespread fascination with their story. As the final preparations were made, Harry took a moment to walk through the castle gardens one last time. The peaceful pathways where he had found solace during difficult periods of his life now served as a place for reflection and closure. He paused by the rose garden where he and Meghan had posed for their first official photographs as an engaged couple. The memory of that hopeful, excited moment seemed both distant and immediate, a reminder of how much their lives had changed in such a short time. Meghan joined him in the garden, her hand finding his as they stood together in contemplative silence. They didn't need words to communicate the mixture of sadness, relief, and anticipation they both felt. This garden, these grounds, this castle had been witness to some of their happiest moments and some of their most challenging times. Leaving meant saying goodbye to both the joy and the pain, creating space for whatever came next. The grand entrance hall of Windsor Castle echoed with the soft sounds of final preparations as Harry and Meghan made their way toward the main doors. Their personal protection officers flanked them discreetly, maintaining the careful balance between security and allowing this moment its proper dignity. The ancient walls seemed to watch as they walked, carrying with them the weight of nearly 1,000 years of royal history and tradition. Staff members lined the corridors in an informal farewell, their faces reflecting a mixture of professional composure and genuine emotion. These were people who had served the couple during their time as working royals, who had witnessed their daily lives behind the scenes, and who understood better than most what this departure truly meant. The head housekeeper dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, while the castle's longtime chef stood with his arms crossed, his expression stern but his eyes betraying his sadness. As they approached the main entrance, Harry paused to shake hands with several senior staff members. These weren't just employees, but people who had become part of their extended royal family. The castle's historian, an elderly gentleman who had served for over 40 years, presented Harry with a small leather-bound book containing photographs from his childhood visits to Windsor. The gesture was simple, but deeply meaningful, a tangible connection to memories that would travel with them into their new life. Meghan embraced the woman who had served as her personal assistant during her royal duties. Their relationship had grown beyond professional courtesy into genuine friendship, making this goodbye particularly difficult. They had worked together on numerous charitable initiatives and public engagements, creating a partnership built on mutual respect and shared values. The assistant pressed a small wrapped package into Meghan's hands, whispering that it was something to remember their time working together. The massive oak doors of Windsor Castle swung open, revealing the classic open-top car waiting in the courtyard. The vehicle gleamed in the morning sunlight, its deep burgundy paint reflecting the ancient stones of the castle walls. The royal standard fluttered gently in the breeze above them, a reminder of the institution they were leaving behind. The contrast between the modern car and the medieval architecture created a powerful visual metaphor for the bridge they were crossing between old traditions and new possibilities. The car itself was a masterpiece of automotive craftsmanship, chosen specifically for its combination of elegance and symbolic significance. The open-top design would allow the public to see them clearly during their departure, maintaining the transparency that had become important to their public persona. The interior featured rich leather upholstery in a cream color that complemented Meghan's dress, while chrome accents caught the light and added a touch of glamour to the solemn occasion. Harry helped Meghan into the car with the same gentlemanly courtesy he had shown since their first public appearance together. The gesture seemed both natural and symbolic, representing his continued protection and care for her as they faced an uncertain future. She settled into the seat with practiced grace, adjusting her dress and ensuring her hat remained properly positioned despite the open air. Her composure was remarkable, but those who knew her well could detect the slight tension in her shoulders. As Harry took his place beside her, the reality of the moment became unmistakable. This was really happening. After months of planning, negotiating, and preparing, they were actually leaving their royal duties behind. The weight of that decision settled over both of them like a heavy blanket, bringing with it a complex mixture of liberation and loss. They had fought for this moment, but that didn't make it any easier to experience. The driver, a longtime member of the royal household staff, caught Harry's eye in the rearview mirror and nodded respectfully. He had driven countless royals over his decades of service and understood the significance of departures. His hands rested steadily on the steering wheel as he waited for the signal to begin their journey. Behind his professional demeanor lay years of loyalty and service to the royal family, making this particular assignment both an honor and a source of personal sadness. Security vehicles had already taken their positions around the castle grounds, their occupants monitoring radio communications and scanning for any signs of trouble. The departure route had been carefully planned to balance public access with security concerns. Every turn, every stop, every potential gathering point had been analyzed and prepared for. This level of protection would continue even as Harry and Meghan stepped back from their official roles, a reminder that some aspects of royal life would follow them wherever they went. The media presence beyond the castle gates had reached remarkable proportions. Helicopters circled overhead at approved distances, their cameras trained on the courtyard where the departure would begin. Photographers with telephoto lenses positioned themselves at strategic points along the expected route, hoping to capture the definitive image of this historic moment. Television crews broadcast live coverage to audiences around the world, their commentators providing analysis and context for viewers trying to understand the significance of what they were witnessing. Inside the castle walls, family members had gathered to bid their private farewells. These conversations had taken place away from cameras and public scrutiny, allowing for genuine emotional exchanges between people who loved each other despite their differences. Harry's father had spoken words of support mixed with concern, while other family members had struggled to find the right balance between respect for their decision and sadness about their departure. The Queen herself had met with the couple earlier that morning in her private study. The conversation had been conducted with the dignity and formality that characterized all of her important discussions, but those present noticed the subtle signs of emotion in her voice and demeanor. As the head of both the royal family and the institution they were leaving, she carried the unique burden of understanding both the personal and constitutional implications of their decision. As the final moments approached, Harry and Meghan sat quietly in the car, each lost in their own thoughts about the journey that had brought them to this point. They had met, fallen in love, married, and started a family while living under the intense scrutiny that came with royal life. They had experienced incredible privileges and opportunities, but also pressures and constraints that had ultimately become unsustainable for them. The sound of the car engine starting broke the contemplative silence in the courtyard. The gentle purr of the well-tuned motor seemed almost too quiet for such a momentous occasion, but it marked the beginning of their physical departure from the castle and everything it represented. Harry reached over and took Meghan's hand, their fingers intertwining in a gesture that spoke of unity and mutual support as they faced whatever challenges lay ahead. Staff members who had gathered in the courtyard stepped back respectfully, creating a clear path for the vehicle. Their faces reflected the same mixture of professional duty and personal emotion that characterized this entire departure. These were people who had dedicated their careers to serving the royal family, and watching this particular departure challenged their understanding of duty, tradition, and change in ways they had never expected. The castle's bells began to toll, marking the hour and adding a ceremonial quality to the proceedings. The sound echoed across the grounds and beyond, reaching the crowds that had gathered outside the gates, and adding an auditory backdrop to the visual spectacle of the departure. The bells had marked countless significant moments in the castle's long history, from royal births and marriages to state occasions and solemn remembrances. The classic open-top car began its slow journey through the castle courtyard, wheels crunching softly on the ancient gravel that had witnessed countless royal processions over the centuries. Harry and Meghan maintained their composure, waving gracefully to the staff members who had gathered to see them off. Their faces showed a careful balance of gratitude and determination, acknowledging the significance of this moment while looking forward to their uncertain future. As they approached the main gates of Windsor Castle, the scale of public interest became immediately apparent. Hundreds of people had gathered along the route, many having arrived before dawn to secure the best viewing positions. The crowd represented a remarkable cross-section of society, from longtime royal supporters holding Union Jack flags to younger admirers who had followed Harry and Meghan's modern approach to royal duties with enthusiasm. The massive iron gates, topped with a royal coat of arms, swung open with ceremonial precision. The symbolism was unmistakable as the couple passed through the threshold that separated their old life from whatever lay ahead. The ancient motto inscribed above the gates seemed to take on new meaning as they crossed this particular boundary. Behind them, the castle stood as solid and unchanging as ever, while ahead stretched roads that would lead them into uncharted territory. The first crowds they encountered burst into spontaneous applause, their enthusiasm genuine and heartfelt. Many held handmade signs expressing support for the couple's decision to prioritize their family's well-being and independence. Others simply wanted to witness this historic moment, understanding that they were seeing the end of one chapter in royal history and potentially the beginning of something entirely new. Meghan's composure remained remarkable as she waved to the gathering crowds. Her background as an actress had taught her how to maintain grace under public scrutiny, but this was different from any performance she had ever given. This was her real life, her actual future, playing out in front of thousands of onlookers and millions of television viewers around the world. The weight of that reality was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Children in the crowd held flowers and small gifts, their innocent excitement providing a touching counterpoint to the more complex emotions surrounding the adult spectators. Some had been brought by parents who wanted them to witness history in the making, while others had simply heard that the popular royal couple would be passing by and had convinced their families to come see them. The route through Windsor took them past familiar landmarks that held special meaning for Harry. The long walk stretched out before them, its tree-lined avenue creating a natural cathedral that had hosted countless royal processions throughout history. Today, that same avenue would carry them away from the life they had known toward an uncertain but chosen future. Local businesses had prepared for this moment, with shop owners and their employees gathering outside their establishments to catch a glimpse of the historic departure. The local pub had placed a chalkboard outside with a message of good luck, while the flower shop had created a small display in the couple's honor. These gestures reflected the genuine affection many local residents felt for Harry and Meghan, regardless of their feelings about the decision to step back from royal duties. As the car progressed through the town, the crowd dynamics began to shift. Some sections were filled with enthusiastic supporters, while others showed more reserved but respectful acknowledgement of the historic nature of the moment. The couple maintained their gracious demeanor throughout, understanding that their public behavior during this departure would be remembered and analyzed for years to come. Media helicopters circled overhead like mechanical birds of prey, their cameras capturing every angle of the procession for immediate broadcast around the globe. The constant drone of their rotors provided an auditory backdrop that reminded everyone present that this was not just a local event, but a global news story. The international interest reflected both the couple's celebrity status and the broader implications of their decision for the modern monarchy. Security personnel maintained their vigilant watch from vehicles that preceded and followed the open-top car. Their presence was subtle but unmistakable, a reminder that even in stepping back from official duties, Harry and Meghan remained high-profile figures requiring protection. The coordination between different security agencies was seamless, reflecting months of careful planning for this departure. Street photographers captured candid moments of interaction between the couple and the crowds, their professional eyes trained to catch the subtle gestures and expressions that revealed the human story beneath the historical significance. These images would later appear in newspapers and magazines around the world, becoming the visual record of a pivotal moment in royal history. The couple's body language spoke volumes about their state of mind during this journey. Harry's protective instincts were clearly visible as he monitored the crowds and occasionally placed a reassuring hand on Meghan's arm. Her responses to the crowd were warm but measured, reflecting her understanding of the scrutiny she continued to face even as they stepped away from official royal life. As they moved through different neighborhoods, the demographics of the crowd shifted, providing a fascinating cross-section of public opinion about their decision. Some areas showed overwhelming support, with people cheering and calling out words of encouragement. Others displayed more mixed reactions, with supporters and critics sharing the same sidewalks while maintaining respectful distance from each other. The journey provided opportunities for spontaneous moments of connection with the public. When the car slowed for traffic, individuals in the crowd were able to make brief eye contact with Harry and Meghan, creating personal memories that would last a lifetime. These micro-interactions reminded everyone present that beneath the royal titles and global celebrity, they were simply a young family trying to navigate their way forward. Local police officers managed crowd control with professional efficiency while also acknowledging the historic nature of their assignment. Many of these officers had worked previous royal visits and understood the unique challenges of balancing public access with security requirements. Their experience showed in the smooth flow of the procession and the absence of any significant incidents. The timing of their departure had been carefully calculated to maximize daylight while allowing adequate time for the journey ahead. The morning sun created perfect lighting conditions for photographers and television crews, while also symbolizing the new dawn that Harry and Meghan were embracing in their personal lives. As they approached the outskirts of Windsor, the crowd sizes began to diminish, but the intensity of support from those present seemed to increase. These were often people who had made special efforts to position themselves along the route, understanding that they might represent the last opportunity for local residents to see the couple in their royal capacity. The transition from the historic town center to more modern suburban areas provided a visual metaphor for the journey Harry and Meghan were undertaking. Behind them lay centuries of tradition and established protocol, while ahead stretched roads that would take them toward a more contemporary way of living and serving others. Traffic management had been coordinated to ensure smooth passage while minimizing disruption to local residents and businesses. The careful planning showed respect for the community that had been home to so many significant moments in their royal lives, ensuring that their departure caused minimal inconvenience to those who had supported them throughout their time at Windsor. The open-top car continued its measured journey through the English countryside, leaving the immediate vicinity of Windsor Castle behind as it headed toward the next phase of Harry and Meghan's carefully planned departure. The landscape began to change from the manicured grounds surrounding the royal residence to the rolling hills and pastoral scenes that characterized this part of England. Ancient hedgerows lined the country roads, their spring growth creating natural walls that had witnessed countless centuries of British history. Word of their route had somehow reached rural communities along the way, and small groups of residents had positioned themselves at strategic points where the road offered clear views. Farmers leaned against gateposts, their work temporarily forgotten as they watched this piece of living history pass by their fields. Children from local villages had been brought by grandparents who understood the significance of witnessing such a moment firsthand. The car's progress allowed time for reflection on the journey that had brought them to this point. Harry gazed across familiar countryside where he had learned to shoot, ride, and appreciate the natural beauty that had been part of his privileged upbringing. These landscapes held memories of carefree childhood days when the weight of royal responsibility seemed distant and manageable. Now, as an adult with his own family to protect, those same responsibilities had taken on a complexity that ultimately proved unsustainable. Meghan observed the pastoral scenery with different eyes, seeing the timeless beauty that had attracted her to this country, while also recognizing how foreign it remained in many ways. Her journey from California actress to British royal had been remarkable, but it had also revealed challenges she could never have anticipated. The countryside rolling past the car windows represented both the beauty she had discovered in her adopted homeland and the isolation she had sometimes felt within its ancient traditions. Their security detail maintained constant communication with coordination centers, monitoring traffic patterns and potential gathering points ahead. The level of planning required for this seemingly simple car journey reflected the complex reality of their continued high profile. Even in stepping back from official duties, their movements would always require careful orchestration to ensure their safety and manage public interest. As they traveled, both Harry and Meghan were acutely aware of the global audience watching their departure through television and internet coverage. News outlets around the world were broadcasting live updates, with commentators analyzing every aspect of their journey for clues about their emotional state and future plans. This level of scrutiny had become a familiar but unwelcome aspect of their lives, one they hoped to reduce through their decision to step back from royal duties. The car passed through small villages where local pubs and shops had placed supportive messages in their windows. These spontaneous displays of goodwill from ordinary people provided touching evidence of the personal connection many felt with the couple. The messages ranged from simple expressions of good luck to more elaborate statements about understanding their need for privacy and independence. At one point, the procession slowed as it approached a primary school where children had gathered in the playground with their teachers. The young faces pressed against the fence showed pure excitement at seeing real royalty, unmarked by the complex political and media discussions surrounding their departure. Their innocent enthusiasm provided a reminder of the positive impact Harry and Meghan had achieved through their charitable work and public engagement. The couple maintained their gracious public demeanor throughout the journey, but close observation revealed subtle signs of the emotional toll this departure was taking. Harry's jaw was set with determination, while his eyes occasionally showed flashes of sadness as they passed particularly meaningful locations. Meghan's smile remained warm and genuine, but those who knew her well could detect the careful control she was exercising to maintain her composure. Their route took them past several charitable organizations they had supported during their time as working royals. The sight of a youth center where Harry had launched a mental health initiative prompted a visible emotional response from the prince. These organizations represented some of the most meaningful work they had accomplished together, and leaving behind the official platform that had enabled such efforts was clearly difficult for both of them. Local media had positioned themselves at various points along the route, their presence adding to the sense that this journey was being documented for historical record. Regional news teams interviewed local residents about their feelings regarding the departure, capturing a range of opinions that reflected the complex public response to Harry and Meghan's decision. The weather remained perfect for their open-top journey, with clear skies and gentle breezes that allowed for optimal visibility and comfortable travel. The sunshine seemed to bless their departure, creating ideal conditions for photography and adding a sense of optimism to what might otherwise have felt like a somber occasion. As they approached areas with larger populations, the crowd sizes began to increase again. Shopping centers and business districts had attracted gatherings of people who had adjusted their daily routines to witness this historic moment. Office workers stood on balconies and rooftops, while shoppers paused their errands to catch a glimpse of the departing royals. The timing of their journey allowed them to see the country at its most vibrant, with spring flowers blooming in gardens and parks they passed. The seasonal renewal visible everywhere provided a natural metaphor for their own transition, suggesting growth and new beginnings even in the midst of endings. The beauty of the landscape served as a reminder of what they would miss about this country while also highlighting the natural world that would continue regardless of their personal decisions. Traffic management remained smooth throughout their journey, with police coordination ensuring minimal disruption to other travelers while allowing safe passage for the royal procession. The professional efficiency of these arrangements demonstrated the careful planning that had gone into every aspect of their departure. Their security team remained vigilant for any signs of unwanted attention or potential disruption, but the overwhelming response from the public continued to be respectful and supportive. The absence of any significant incidents allowed the journey to proceed as planned, maintaining the dignity that both Harry and Meghan wanted to preserve during this transition. As they traveled further from Windsor, both began to experience a growing sense of finality about their decision. Each mile created additional distance from their former life, while bringing them closer to the uncertain future they had chosen. The physical journey served as a powerful metaphor for the emotional and psychological transition they were experiencing. The landscape began to show subtle changes as they moved toward their next destination, with different architectural styles and regional variations becoming apparent. These small details served as reminders that they were leaving behind not just their royal duties, but also the particular environment that had shaped their recent experiences. Their continued grace and dignity during this public departure was creating positive final memories for many of the observers along their route. The way they handled this challenging transition would likely influence public opinion about their decision for years to come, making their behavior during these visible moments particularly significant for their long-term reputation and legacy. The final phase of their journey took Harry and Meghan through increasingly diverse landscapes, each mile marking their transition from one chapter of life to another. The classic open-top car had become a vessel carrying them not just across the English countryside, but across the threshold between their royal past and their uncertain but self-determined future. The weight of this symbolic journey was evident in both their faces, which showed a mixture of resolution and melancholy as familiar territory gave way to less familiar roads. As they approached their ultimate destination, the couple could see aircraft waiting in the distance, ready to carry them to the next phase of their new life. The sight of these modern machines created a stark contrast with the ancient traditions they were leaving behind, where horse-drawn carriages had once carried royals to their destinations. Contemporary technology would now transport them toward opportunities and challenges that previous generations could never have imagined. Their final interactions with the British public took place in these last miles of their journey. The crowds had thinned somewhat, but those who had positioned themselves along this portion of the route seemed particularly invested in offering their personal farewells. Many held signs expressing support for their decision to prioritize their family's well-being over institutional expectations. Others simply wanted to be part of history, understanding that they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered and analyzed for generations. Harry's connection to the military remained evident in his bearing throughout this final stretch. His service with the armed forces had shaped his character and provided some of his most meaningful experiences, both in Britain and during deployments overseas. Leaving behind his official military roles was among the most difficult aspects of stepping back from royal duties, as these positions had allowed him to maintain connections with causes and people he cared deeply about. Meghan's thoughts during these final miles were focused on the future they were creating for their young family. The intense media scrutiny and public pressure that had characterized their royal life had convinced her that a different path was necessary for their child's well-being. The decision to step back from official duties was ultimately about creating space for a more normal childhood, even if that normalcy would be relative given their continued public profile. The security arrangements for this final phase of their departure involved coordination with airport authorities and aviation security services. Their protection would continue even as they left British soil, reflecting the ongoing security concerns that would follow them regardless of their official status. The complexity of these arrangements highlighted how their lives would remain fundamentally different from those of ordinary citizens, even as they sought greater independence. Local residents who had gathered near the airport perimeter represented the last opportunity for spontaneous public interaction during this chapter of their lives. These final crowds included people who had traveled significant distances to witness their departure, understanding that they might not have another opportunity to see the couple in person. The dedication shown by these supporters provided touching evidence of the personal connections Harry and Meghan had forged with members of the public. Their arrival at the departure point marked the end of their physical journey through Britain and the beginning of their logistical transition to their new life overseas. The classic car that had carried them through this symbolic passage would remain behind, becoming part of the historical record of their time as working royals. The vehicle had served its purpose perfectly, providing the dignity and visibility required for such a significant departure while allowing them to maintain connection with the public throughout their journey. The final moments before boarding their aircraft provided opportunities for private reflection on the magnitude of what they were leaving behind. Harry had been born into this life of service and privilege, making his departure particularly poignant. Meghan had chosen to enter royal life through marriage, but her decision to step back represented an acknowledgement that the personal costs had become too high for their family's well-being. Their departure from British soil would not end their connection to the causes and people they had supported as working royals, but it would fundamentally change the nature of those relationships. The charitable organizations they had championed would need to adjust their strategies, while the public would lose regular access to royals who had brought a modern approach to traditional duties. Airport staff who assisted with their departure maintained the professional discretion that characterized all interactions with high-profile travelers, but the historic nature of this particular departure was not lost on anyone present. These were people accustomed to serving celebrities and dignitaries, yet they understood that this departure represented something unprecedented in modern royal history. As their aircraft prepared for takeoff, both Harry and Meghan could look back on British soil that had been home to some of their happiest and most challenging moments. The country stretching out below them held memories of their wedding day, the birth of their child, successful charitable initiatives, and painful media conversations that had ultimately contributed to their decision to leave. The view from their aircraft window provided a final perspective on the landscape they were leaving behind. The patchwork of fields, villages, and cities that made up the British countryside represented both the beauty they had discovered in this ancient land and the constraints they had ultimately found impossible to navigate while maintaining their family's well-being. Their departure marked not just a personal transition, but a moment of broader significance for the modern monarchy. Their decision to prioritize personal happiness and family welfare over institutional duty represented a generational shift in attitudes toward royal service and sacrifice. Future historians would likely mark this departure as a significant moment in the evolution of royal roles and expectations. The global media coverage of their departure ensured that their journey would be remembered and analyzed from multiple perspectives for years to come. The images captured during their passage through the British countryside would become iconic representations of a couple choosing independence over tradition, family over duty, and uncertainty over constraint. As Britain disappeared below the clouds, Harry and Megan faced forward toward whatever opportunities and challenges awaited them. Their departure in the classic open-top car had provided the dignity and closure they needed for this transition, while also offering the British public a final opportunity to express their support or concern about the couple's decision. The empty car that had carried them through their final royal journey would return to Windsor Castle, where it would become part of the collection of vehicles that had served the royal family throughout history. Its place in the royal garage would serve as a reminder of the day when tradition and modernity intersected in a way that changed both the monarchy and one young family's understanding of duty, service, and personal fulfillment. Their story was far from over, but this chapter had reached its conclusion with grace, dignity, and hope for whatever came next. The classic car had carried them across more than just miles of countryside. It had transported them across the bridge between who they had been and who they were becoming, leaving behind a legacy that would be debated and remembered long after the last echoes of their departure had faded into history.